Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 15 of Immigration Talk. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi here with my associate Anna Sergeeva. Anya, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
Um, I'm not so well because of this of war that's going on in Ukraine, and I'm so devastated. I'm from Belarus, and I feel I cannot express myself how I feel about this whole situation. And a lot of people are dying. A lot of people fled the country, and we're trying to help as many people as we can. So if you wanna, you can check out our previous videos that we did on this topic regarding Ukraine. We created the guide in Russian that you can download with all the links to U.S. embassies and what can you do in this situation if you're citizen of Ukraine and you're currently in the United States, or you're in Ukraine, or your family is in Ukraine, or in some other countries, for those who was able to flee.
Definitely. We have the Russian language videos we've done really recently. It's February, actually, it's March 1st today. We're doing this, but just this week that we posted. So check those out. We'll have a link below to the guide as to, the last publishing we had. That was a Russian language about applying for different kind of visas. And it's definitely worth doing. We have some people say don't try it, but if you want to get a tourist visa to get out, come visit the United States, that could be an option I think you should try. We're going to focus this episode on student visas. We're going to talk about the whole beginning to end of the basics of getting a student visa. This can be an option for Ukrainian students to do. So they'll have a guide below that breaks down the basics. So you can download that. And as well, again, the Russian language breakdown of how the U.S. Embassy in Poland is handling these things, as well as how to request expedites. For example, if you're married and you want to request an expedite for your Ukrainian spouse, how you do that. There'll be links there. We have a bunch of videos that talk about how to do it as well on our YouTube and Instagram and all the other channels. So Anya, today we're going to talk about student visas. This is particularly the F-1 student visa, not the J-1, not the M for vocational students, or J is cultural exchange. Each one of them have their own nuances, so we'll get to that in separate months. But the focus of this month, March, will be on student visas, and we're going to go through the basics right now. People who want to come and study in the United States. So, Anna, if someone wants to come study in the United States, what's the first thing they should think about doing?
Well, first thing, you need to find what you want to study. You need to find a school that you want to go to, that you want to attend. You can do it yourself, or I know there are services that provide this that can help you with finding the right place for you here in the United States. So you need to contact the school first and see what are the requirements in order for them to accept you, right?
Yeah.
And some of these requirements may include getting TOEFL results, or this second test. I forgot what it's called.
IELTS or something like that?
But for IELTS, yeah, right. And also, you may come to the United States to study English. So English, in and of itself, you don't have to know English before coming to the United States to study. Well, I have to mention that some consular officers, for example, if you go to your F-1 student visa interview at the embassy or consulate, and if you don't speak English well, or very well, or maybe at least you can say something in English, it might be a reason for them to deny visa application, because they will think, oh, how are you going to study in the United States if you don't know English? But this is not always the case.
Definitely. So like schools you go to could be, colleges, it could be graduate schools, it could be language institutions, as you said, we're just coming for 6 months or a year to study a language. You don't always need a student visa to do like an informal course. Sometimes you can use a tourist visa, but it kind of depends if you're going to get a degree from that or not. Sometimes it's safer just go and get the student visa to avoid them saying, oh, you used the tourist visa incorrectly and went to school. And tourist visas are usually 6 months, so there's not enough time many times for doing this. And so if you contact these schools, and first on their websites, even for their international section, they'll have a real good guide to what you need to do, as well as when you contact them, this is business for the school, so they're really happy to help. But let's say they are accepted to a school, there's a college that they, I went to UCLA, UCLA accepts you. What happens then once you get accepted? What does the school do for you?
So first thing and foremost, one of the most important documents for students here in the United States is Form I-20, that is specifically issued to F-1 students. This form is issued by the school designated school official, and it outlines the name of the school, address, the program dates, the funds, because again, one of the things that prospective student has to prove is to show that he or she has enough money to pay for his education in the United States.
Mhm. And it's not cheap when
Yeah.
you're a foreign student. Even if you go to public school in the United States, you're charged out-of-state tuition fees, which are really high. And then you have to show you could afford or pay for home and board. If you have a family member here, they can support you too. Maybe use Form I-134 to show financial support. So it's not easy, but a lot of people do it. I mean, every year it's been a record growth in student visa holders, other than the last years under President Trump, and obviously now with the coronavirus pandemic. But in general, the growth of the student visa has been astronomical, and so a lot of people are coming to study here. So it's definitely a thing you should do. It's doable for any country, really. We see people from all countries come, but it's something that it could really help your future. Whether you stay in the United States afterwards or you go back home, it's a good status situation. It's good education, and it can open up a lot of doors for you.
Yes, I just want to mention one important thing is that F1 student visa is a non-immigrant visa. And one of the requirements in order for you to get this visa is to show that you don't have any intention to stay in the United
Yeah.
States. However, I remember there is this memo that USCIS issued a couple of years ago. I'm not sure when was it. I just remember reading it, and they were saying there that basically that they will not be so strict in terms of immigrant intent towards students, because obviously, yeah, you don't know what's going to happen when you
Yeah.
come here, you study, you might find work, right,
Yeah.
and apply for work visa, or you can find someone else and get married to a citizen.
Yeah, and we'll talk about those change status options towards the end. But a lot of immigration comes down to luck and the officer you get. So you go to the embassy, and some officer might be approving everybody, but then another officer is just being really hardcore and asking about your background, and they're afraid you're going to stay, and they go hard. So a lot of immigration, and people ask me, like, when they want to hire us for the student visa, they might want to guarantee or something like that. And it's hard to do. It's impossible to do. One is it's illegal for a lawyer to guarantee anything. So if a lawyer does guarantee something, you should be careful of that. But it's at the end of the day out of our control, because it's up to a USCIS officer in the United States or a consular officer, and they can do whatever they want to do. They don't have to approve this. It's their discretion. So it's impossible to give guarantee, because it's up to some random person that we don't know someday in the future who's going to review your case. But the approval rate is pretty high for student visas as long as you meet the basic requirements. So there's two ways you could apply for a student visa or student visa status. If you're already in the United States in a proper existing status, you can do what's called change of status, which I'll go into right now. Or if you're overseas, you need to go to the U.S. Embassy or consulate and apply for a visa, an F-1 visa, to come in, which Anya will go over in a moment as well. So those are the two basics. But let's start with the first one. If you're already in the United States, you may have come in with a B1, B2 tourist visa. You're here. You might have come in with your parents. You have an F2 visa and your parents are going to school, but now you're like 18 and you want to go to college, you want to start to get your own independent student visa, you could potentially get your own F1. And what you require for this is Form I-539, change of status. So you're going from the status you had. We have cases sometimes when an H-1B visa holder, this is a person who's working in the United States, their spouse is an H-4, the spouse wants to go to school and just have their independent visa, they go from an H-4 to an F-1. It's change of status, Form I-539. It's both on paper and online. Most lawyers use the paper format, and children could come under as F2s too. But you need to submit this application. The I-20 Anya spoke about is really key as part of that, as well as information about finances to show you can afford to go to school, and maybe some information that if you have it, you have a home back home outside the country to show no immigrant intent. But it's not mandatory per se. The key things in this are, the ability to fund the school, the I-20 being there, and timely filing this. So if you're on a tourist visa and it's only 6 months, you got to file it within the 6 month period. If it passes, there's a good chance they're going to deny it for filing too late. And one thing is, they don't want people to use a tourist visa to come and immediately file for a change of status to a student visa, because that may look like abusing the tourist visa. You only got a tourist visa for the excuse of bypassing the embassy and not dealing with them. So make sure your intent really has been to come here as a tourist if you use that, but then you change your mind later. That's going to be really important if as long as that's the truth. But that's if you're doing the United States. A big problem is these change of status cases are taking forever right now. It might take you 6 months, a year and a half. and you're planning on starting school next semester, and then you still haven't got your F1 approved, still can't go to school. And then, it creates a cycle of like insanity where it takes forever to get the case approved and it delays your life. So generally, if possible, I like people to get the visa because they have more control over when your semester starts. Excuse me. But that's doing change of status in the United States. There's a fingerprinting as part of that too. But Anya, could you go over consular processing for getting a student visa?
Right, before going over the consular processing, I just want to add something about change of status. I think when Trump became a president and USCIS policy changed significantly, right? And there was this one requirement that, for example, if you change your status from like tourist visa or like some other status that does not allow you to study, because for example, H4, like spouses of H-1B workers, they can study on under H4, right? They don't have to change their status to F1. But for example, if you come here under tourist visa and you filed for to change your status to student visa, right? They were saying that you have to maintain your underlying status all the way up to like 30 days before the program start date.
Yeah.
Right. But this is no longer the rule. Now it's called bridge the gap.
Yeah.
They don't require F students to do that any longer. So as long as you file in lawful status, right?
You'll
I
be
forgot
okay.
that.
How it was
Yeah.
before was you had a tourist visa and then you filed change of status to student visa, but you had to keep filing extensions of the tourist visa while the student visa was pending. And that means you keep having to pay filing fees over and over again, maybe 2 or 3 times, spending thousands of dollars eventually just on filing fees. And then if the tourist visa was not approved, extension was not approved in time, or the F1 is approved too soon, this timetable game would happen, which would create disasters and denials and lead to people having to leave the United States. Thankfully, they backed out of that and just said, listen, once you file change of status, you're okay until it's approved. Huge flexibility. This came a couple months ago. Really big deal in the change of status process. Has been helpful, but the delays persist. Just getting a fingerprinting appointment takes forever. But if you're here and you got to do it that way, for example, you're in a country you can't go back to for visa processing, then you have no choice. But let's talk about visa processing now. So what's different and what other forms you have to use for that?
So for getting your actual visa stamp in your passport, if you're outside of the United States, you need to have an interview at the U.S. consulate.
Mhm.
Again, recently there was this new rule that Department of State issued, saying that, for example, if you if you have ever had a U.S. visa or you're from the country that qualify for ESTA and some other things, you can watch one of our previous videos. We went through really detail about this whole thing. So some people in this situation will qualify even for interview waiver, right? And they
Waivers
will be
still
able to get
yeah.
their, yeah. But for example, saying if you don't qualify for interview waiver, you need to get the actual appointment, an interview, bring all your documents. And first thing to start with is completing the S-160. This is application for non-immigrant visa. And we will not stop talking about that because this application is very important. Because again, you don't know what you're gonna end up with, right? And this application will affect your whole immigration history. So important thing is to always tell the truth, provide all the information requested, be specific, and have the copy. Please always make sure to save the copy of this application
So
because you might need it later on.
this is so important about being thorough. We have cases where people have other names they've used, they don't list it there. That's got to be there. But as Anya said, keep a copy. And the way they made the form is really hard to keep a copy. So before you submit it, take screenshots of all the pages. So you have records. We know what you said. So later on, if you come to a lawyer, we could make sure it's okay. Because once you put that DS-160 in the system, it's on, you're stuck with it and the information on there. And if later on, 5-10 years down the line, you apply for another status or some of the visa, they're going to compare. If it doesn't look good, it doesn't match something there, they could accuse you of fraud or misrepresentation and deny the other visa category. We see this happen all the time. And it's not unusual. So be very thorough. Sorry to jump in
Yeah,
there.
and the main things that we see, yeah, in this context is like people not including their spouses, or they including their boyfriends or girlfriends as spouses. They don't include kids, or they include kids when they're in vice versa, when they're not supposed to. they when they had military training, they forget about that they
Yeah.
had military training, and they
Yeah.
don't list it there. So all these things matter.
Yeah. And don't let someone else fill it for you and submit it, because a lot of times people that English even might not be good, or they just don't want to fill it out. They give it to a travel agency or some other friend to fill it out, and that person doesn't know what's going on and they don't complete it. We just had one case where a sister of somebody filled it out for them, and that person had gotten a temporary divorce for some reason, and the sister didn't know and listed the marriage, and that creates problems later on down the line. It's just weird stuff pops up. So it's your life, you know it, you have to review it. There's ways to translate the document and see in other languages too. Do whatever you can just to make sure the information is correct, because it will follow you for the rest of your life. And so you don't want to say something that's incorrect and have major issues. A lot of people don't hire immigration attorneys to help them in this process. That's a reality. And that's why we see problems all the time come about, because people don't take it as seriously as they should, because in other countries, a form is not that big a deal. But the US, it makes it a really big deal in immigration forms and could use any indiscrepancy against you. And they do all the time. So it's just something we see regularly.
Right. And I think, John, you wanted to talk about registering for the interview appointment.
Yeah, so every embassy does it kind of differently, but you will need to register. Once you do the DS-160, you'll need to register with the embassy. One is a postal system, so they know, like, once your case is done, if you give them your passport after your interview, for them where to mail it, but also to schedule an appointment, an interview with the embassies. For non-immigrant visas, most of the times, there's a website that they'll guide you with to go to, where you could choose a calendar date after you pay the visa fee. So you pay the fee, it opens up a calendar where you can choose a date to have your interview. So make sure to do that. So it's Form DS-160, and then you go and register with the embassy for postal location and also for the interview. And then eventually you have an interview date where you take your documents, the I-20, proof of funds, passport, and maybe other documents if you're bringing your spouse or children, your marriage certificate, their birth certificates to show you're really the parent. There may be more stuff even because of your unique case. If you had military service that you complete, you might want to bring that too. There's all these other nuanced stuff that could come about because of an individual specific situation, but you just want to be prepared. You don't want to go to interview twice. You just want to knock it out of the park the first time around.
Right. And one thing that I would like to add is that once you get the visa, right, this is not the end. You still have to be fly to the United States and get admitted, right, by CBP officer, by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And for F visas specifically, you cannot be admitted to the United States earlier than 30 days before your program start date.
Yeah. And that's, you don't get on a plane and try to come, because you're not supposed to come, and they'll send you back. So be careful of that kind of stuff from popping up. It's a 30-day window before the first day of school if you're doing the student visa. So now let's say you're here, you're studying, and then some work opportunities pop up. Luckily, they have created systems when you go into school here, you could do various kind of work stuff. We'll start with curricular practical training. This is CPT, as is well known, is when you're actually going to school, your ability to do some work. And this allows you to do work if it's related to your study and part of your school program, that you could do what's called CPT and even get paid for that work. So that's something the school, you'd work with your international office. They would approve it if the work is approvable. And there's a thing that you may hear called first day CPT. For some schools, they say as soon as you start going to school, you need to get on the job training. And so they'll let you do it. Be careful with these schools. A lot of times this could be potentially fraud. Some schools, very few, but some are using the F-1 aspect, this first day CPT aspect, to kind of bypass getting that work visa. And there's actually no classes. You just get a work visa. There's scams. Even ICE, the enforcement, creates fake schools to catch people in this situation. So don't think it's too good. It might be too good to be true if your school says, okay, come here, we'll get you a work visa, do whatever you want, and you don't have to come to school. That's going to be really bad, so be careful of that. Now, CPT is kind of formalized, but you could do on-campus appointment many times. Also, if you have some sort of hardship, financial hardship, if your country's going through some stuff where money can't be sent and they're going through war or something like that, there's the ability they have of giving you a work permit as well as something to look into. But that's when you're going to school. If you graduate, there's a thing that's the major part of the program for student visa holders. It's called OPT, optional practical training, for you to spend a year to get training in what you're doing, what you learn in the field. So it's for 1 year. And then if your major was STEM related, science, technology, engineering, and math, you could get additional 24 months after that. So a couple of years of being in the United States and working. Just to be mindful of is make sure to fill out the paperwork correctly and in a timely fashion. OPT requires you to apply for an I-765 form, which is for an employment authorization document, EAD, and we'll call it a work permit. You got to file it within 90 days of graduating or within 6 days after graduating, and you have to have an I-20 that's issued within 30 days of the submission of the form I-765. And so we have problems where people submit it. We'll have a different video talking about problems people have with student visas, but people don't fill this out correctly, don't send it in time. It causes the work permit to be denied, OPT denied, which means then you have to leave and then go back home. So it could be really terrible situation. We'll do a whole different video on the whole OPT, STEM, all this work kind of visas. But that's it. So you got into the United States, you got the visa, you studied, maybe did some work here and there, and then what's next? So Anna, what options do these people have? A brief overview of what these people can do who are here on student visas.
Basically, you can go from student visa anywhere else you want to go.
Yeah.
It can be work visa, H-1B specifically, and we did a lot of videos on H-1B just in February. So please check them out.
Yeah,
We really break down all the like H-4s,
yeah.
right? Work authorization, and all these related things. You know, H-1B registration, lottery, and
a specific video on the transition from an F-1 to H-1B. So check that out, the F-1 to H-1B visa video that we have.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the description, so you can check it out there. Again, if you find someone, fell in love, you know, you're getting married, you jump from student visa to adjustment of status application that puts you on path to getting your green card in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Potentially you can get an O1 visa for people with outstanding achievements, right? You can, if you want to travel in the United States, potentially you can apply for B2 and get some additional time to travel. But F1 by itself has a 60 days grace period after your program end date, specifically for these purposes. If you don't want to study, but you want to see the United States, you want to travel, you want to explore the country, you know, yeah, and it might be very helpful. Also, you can continue your study further. You can start with bachelor's degree, go for master's, go for PhD, and so on. And again, I remember they were saying something that they will limit this opportunity of you studying here forever, because some people come here and they constantly go into school, you know, just to stay in the United States. Like apparently this is like student visa abuse. But I'm not aware that any rules were enacted in this regard.
No, I mean
Right, John?
sometimes they may go to the embassy to renew their visa. The officer gets skeptical and they deny it or something like that. But overall, people do it where they come in for a language course, then they get their bachelor's degree, so 1 year there, 4 years there, and then they get their PhD, another couple of years, then their master's degree, and then they go for their second master's. They do it. I mean, the problem is it costs a lot of money. So if you're wealthy enough, but all of a sudden you're here for 10, 15 years, maybe just studying and doing stuff like that. And then between each level, there's OPT. So once you graduate from bachelor's degree, you get 1 to 3 years of OPT. Then you get PhD, maybe you get some more OPT time potentially. So there's ways to kick it down the road. It's gonna be expensive. You're gonna have to go to school forever. Some people have more patience to that. We got our, graduate degrees, which required more schooling, and after school is over, we were just kind of over it. I wouldn't want to go to school ever again. But life is school. You're always doing it, but that formalized method you get tired of. But hey, if it's something, whether you're building your career up or you just want to change a pace, we have people who have a career back to home country, but just want to change it up, do something completely different. Why not give it a shot and come study in the United States, get to know the culture, the people here, and a lot of opportunities that exist. So we'll have a link.
This is one of the things that I love United States for, is that here you can start from zero at any age. You can become anyone you want.
Yeah, and it's still there. I see people when I post this stuff on TikTok, for example, oh, America's done this and that, but we have so many clients who come every day from all backgrounds, come here and really take their lives to the next level. So that opportunity is still here and it's still alive, and it's live for you and I as well. I mean, you're an immigrant, my family is immigrants, and we're making it happen. So it's a beautiful country still, and a lot of opportunity for everyone across the world to really make it, as long as put your mind to it, your focus and your attention. there's so many options, and the student visa is one of the best leaders that gets you to where you want to go. We help a lot of people in that kind of stuff. So if anyone's interested in having a consultation about this, please email us at info@jqqlaw.com. We can schedule a time. The email is info@jqqlaw.com. We'll check out, reply. Briefly describe what you're thinking about in the email so you know what kind of case you're going for. But I hope this info helped. Anya, do you have anything to add?
No, not at this time.
Perfect. So if you watch this, please like and subscribe, and so you get more updates. And you can always subscribe to our newsletter. Just send an email, and we'll add you there to get updates on all sorts of stuff that we send out every month about the U.S. immigration system. So I'm glad you all came in. Thank you so much, and thank you, Anya, for going through this with us.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you for watching this educational program. To get the latest videos, click the subscribe button and the notification bell icon. Also, help us help the immigrant community by liking this video and sharing it with your family and friends. You can also find us on other social media sites like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where you find the latest updates on immigration news, policy changes, and tips. Be safe and God bless. See you soon.